Welcome back to the Art Inside the Craft podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Glazier, and this is episode number 19. My guests today are Maggie McClure and Shane Henry of the band The Imaginaries out of Oklahoma. Their debut album hit the airwaves last year, and I spoke to them shortly after its official release about the 2 years leading up to that release and all the struggles that they pushed through to get that album out. We discussed their work with John Cooney Birdie on the One Mic series, getting back down to Muscle Shoals to record that album, and their process of writing music. They have since also written the soundtrack and acted in the feature film A Cowgirl's Song, starring Cheryl Ladd, Savannah Lee May, and Darcy Lynn. Let's listen in now to that interview with Maggie McClure and Shane Henry of The Imaginaries. Who you guys are, where you're from, for those who may not know how long you guys have been playing together.
So we are the Imaginaries, Maggie McClure and Shane Henry. We met through music, and we have recorded lots of albums on our solo projects. And we met through music, and we started collaborating together probably 2007. And so we started touring and playing a lot of college shows and doing a lot of duo shows, and started developing this sound as a duo. And a lot of people since then have requested to hear music from both of us instead of just the other one backing the other up. But we are both from Oklahoma, and we just really knew that doing a album together would happen eventually. We just didn't know how. And things kind of got launched whenever we were picked for the One Mic series in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, with John Cooney Birdie. And Shane, I'll let you take it from here if you want.
Yeah, so that was kind of a random coincidence. We were asked to do this One Mic series through a mutual friend that knew John. John was doing this kind of like a YouTube channel series where he goes to studios all across the country, finds a band to record with one microphone in the studio, just like old records were made, and it just kind of captures that moment as one take and one camera angle, which is really cool. So we were selected. We went to Muscle Shoals. We actually got to work with some of these second generation studio musicians that, have been recording and working with musicians out of the area for years. The guitar player, Kelvin Hawley, had played with Little Richard and has recorded with all kinds of greats. And so it was just a really neat experience. It was very inspiring, and that sort of launched this idea of this new sound that we found from those sessions. And of course, we went back in the fall of 2018 to record this record. And so yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I talked to you guys about a year ago and planned on getting the article out. But like I said, my hard drive crashed. Everything kind of went crazy after that. And so you guys have also kind of gone through a lot of crazy stuff. You know, your album was going to come out, a year or so ago. And then you just kind of ran into one thing after another. Obviously, COVID happened and Shane had some health issues. So do you kind of want to maybe just catch me up to like what's been going on in between that and now finally getting a release date for the album?
Sure. So we had planned on initially releasing the album in 2019, and Shane we were in the recording studio recording vocals, and his stomach just started killing him, and we had to go straight to the emergency room, and he ended up having to have an emergency appendectomy.
Wow.
And that was a horrible experience. Not only just that, but he got infected, and it was a very long, brutal 6-month recovery for him. And so, having a surgery in your stomach for a singer is not ideal. Yeah. And so it just really took him a while to recover, and we did not want to create any stress or anything that was going to delay his recovery. So we just felt like it was best to push on the album release. Now, during that time, he encouraged me to start looking into possible opportunities for the Christmas season
Mm.
because we hoped by then he would be back to his normal self. And he encouraged me to look up different artists who would be going on tour. Now, mind you, this was in the summer, so
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to find who's releasing a Christmas album and who's touring that
Right.
early. But I was able to find about 20 different acts that were going to be touring and or releasing holiday albums. And I just started reaching out to them one after the other. And it was September when we got the offer to open for the entire Brian Setzer Orchestra Christmas tour.
Uh-huh.
And we were so excited because an opportunity like that is one in a million. And for an independent artist, it's obviously a very exciting thing. For any artist it is, but to be able to do that on your own and make it happen is very cool.
Yeah.
And so we booked that and immediately just got into, okay, getting ready for the tour and that mode. So we printed the debut album so that we would have it on tour, even though it wouldn't technically be out yet to the public.
Right.
We printed up a Christmas album, which is a combination of our past two Christmas projects with a couple new songs, but all rebranded as the Imaginaries.
Mm.
And we got a bunch of t-shirts printed. They told us that his crowd was a very big merch buying crowd, which is great.
Great.
And so we got all ready. We hired a tour manager and we rented a Sprinter van. And 2 days before the tour, we were literally about to drive to our first destination. And we got an email that the entire tour had been canceled.
Oh, man.
And that was a pretty big gut punch.
Yeah.
And so not only, did it just kind of crush our spirits, it also kind of crushed our bank account.
I would imagine.
Yeah. So our original plan when we knew we'd booked that was to release the album on the heels of that tour. And then when that happened, it set us back financially and we thought, okay, I guess we're going to pause again. And then we were like, okay, let's just plan for like a 2020 spring release. And then COVID happened.
Jeez.
So it's been a series of events that have been completely out of our control. We've learned a lot. We really have, to be flexible. And I'm definitely a planner, and this has taught me a lot to just kind of go with the flow. But all that to say, those are the setbacks we've experienced, but we could not be more excited to release this album finally into the world and get these songs out there.
Yeah, I was just kind of following along with everything, that whole thing over the years, just kind of flabbergasted by, it's just one thing after another, and it's insane. And I kept, and I had the album. I think I've had it for maybe a year or shortly after I had talked to you guys. I can't remember, but I kept listening and looking and watching to see when it was coming out, and it's so good. I was like, man.
Oh, thank you.
I wish this thing would finally get out and the stars would align so you guys could get it out for people to hear it, because it's just incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the good news is neither of us have gotten struck by lightning, so we're on a better streak now, I guess, right? I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
You just got to go with the flow in life, and I guess it just wasn't meant to be until now. So, things are definitely looking up, and back in March of last year, releasing an album during COVID time, it just seemed like releasing an album was so unimportant at that time, like that this doesn't even matter. Like, we're talking about people, life and death, getting this virus and dying, and it just seemed like, this isn't right to even think about this. And so I feel like now we're on the tail end, hopefully, of COVID, and hopefully things are going to start really getting better by the summer, and hopefully returning to a more normal I hope.
Yeah,
Anyways.
hopefully.
Yeah. Well, and we've learned that people are really craving, new music, new content. And they are, sitting on their computer or on their phone. So, we just really felt like now is a good time to get this music out there and help bring some healing and inspiration and entertainment
Yeah.
to some folks. So, like Shane said, it all has happened like it's supposed to.
Yep. Good. And finally coming to a head.
Yes.
And like you guys said, so you'd worked with John Cooney Birdie before with the One Mic series, and I would definitely encourage anybody listening, and I'll put a link when I post this as well for anybody to go check that out, because those are really incredible recordings.
Yeah, man.
And your guys' songs on there were just, I mean, amazing. It really showcased how great of musicians you guys are.
Well, thank you.
I am, as a huge music nerd, and I have your album, and I, leading up to this was just poring over every detail in the liner notes and everything that goes into it. And so one question I wanted to ask was, first of all, why you went back to Muscle Shoals to record the music there, and then also, what was it like to work with David Hood, who was like a bucket list player for me to ever meet?
Totally. You may take this one, Maggie?
Sure.
So, obviously, the One Mic series experience was something that we never really, we didn't know what to expect. We just went down there because, we both obviously are fascinated by the music that's been made in that town,
Sure.
and listen to a lot of great records, the Etta James stuff. I mean, the Wilson Pickett stuff, you name it. All amazing music has been recorded in Muscle Shoals. The stuff Aretha did, just phenomenal recordings, and there's just such a vibe to that place. And when we got there and we started meeting these people that are studio musicians that work there, and getting to just know them, and then we literally we met that band the day we went, so the One Mic series recordings, we met all those musicians earlier that day. We went to a studio that was at a different location, and we rehearsed each song about 2 or 3 times, and then we came over and set up and did the One Mic series, and that was about a 2.5 hour process.
Wow.
And it was just so amazing, man. We connected on a different level with those players, and it just felt so good that we were like, there's a magic here, and there's a reason why the Stones went there to record. There's a reason why so many musicians go to Muscle Shoals. There really is something special about it, and you can't really explain it until you go there, but there's just a vibe and a magic, and that's why we came back to record the album there.
Yeah. Incredible.
And getting to work with David Hood was amazing. He had literally just had back surgery, I believe, the week before.
Yeah, we were going to use him on the entire record, and of course he called Maggie and was like, "I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to do this." But he passed it on to an incredible bass player, Shauna Tucker, and she's freaking incredible, and she did a phenomenal job. He happened to just stop by the studio the day we were recording the track Enough of You, which happens to be kind of one of the more challenging songs musically on the record. It's a kind of a faster riff, and it's a very specific musical thing, it's, so he had to learn all that, and he just killed it. He came in there and sat down and picked up the riff right away, and it was just like, wow, it's amazing watching those guys work like that, because they really they immediately can pick up the vibe of what you're doing, and they just can sort of be this, they can play any style, and it's just amazing. And he did such a great job, and was just such a kind and just humble person, really cool. Yeah. And he actually came back a couple other times and checked in with us while we were recording, and
great.
And I know he wanted to be involved in the album, but he just really wasn't feeling well. So
yeah, that's incredible. Those musicians, every time I see something, or there's a documentary, or just any little snippet I can soak up, it's just incredible just to watch them, apply their craft to what they're doing. it's
Yeah, I
it's
mean
great.
the bass lines that David Hood has come up with are just so freaking legendary. In a lot of the songs, that he played on. I mean, he was a studio musician, so he probably wasn't the writer, but I mean, his parts made a lot of those songs so
Yeah.
good, so catchy. I mean,
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to kind of say is that you guys just had a ton of talented people in the studio with you while you were recording, like Bill Leffler, who's an engineer songwriter, and then he did some drums and percussion, and then also Chad Copeland, who plays some keys and then did additional producing on the album. But it's kind of interesting to me, like with having so many fantastic people in there with you, did you guys kind of go into the studio obviously knowing which songs or having an idea which songs you wanted to do and how you wanted to do them? Did you kind of go in and say, well, here's how we want to do everything with the guys you were working with? Or did you kind of go in and say, well, here's our idea, will you guys work it with us and let's see what comes out of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very collaborative effort. We did go in a few days before we started actually recording, and we did, I want to say, a few days of pre-production with Kelvin Holly, and we just walked through the songs, and he was kind of a band leader, if you will, when we were in the studio, as far as communicating to the other players, because we had already spoken to him about each song and he had already charted them out. He kind of knew the vibe for each one. And so that was really key to this whole process. But, we really did know what we wanted. And this process was so easy because the players were so good and everyone really understood what was going on and what the goal was. And it really wasn't we didn't have to sit there and, give everybody all these directions because they are so talented and knew exactly what we wanted and were going for. It really was a pretty seamless process, wouldn't you say, Shane?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we wanted that Muscle Shoals sound, and we knew that, like, if we sort of tried to make a record where we were Pro Toolsing it together, where we weren't actually playing in a room, that it wasn't going to capture what we wanted for this band. Because the Imaginaries is kind of it's a live thing, it's let's get a great take and go for it. And it's real music. And that's kind of been our approach to this type of, to the sound that I guess that we got in Muscle Shoals, was just to be able to do it with good musicians in the room live. And that's why we went there, because we knew that those players could pull that off and pull it off really well. So.
Yeah. And that definitely comes through in the music itself when you're listening to it. I mean, like with all of the stuff that John does, it is so vibrant and so alive and almost breathing when you listen to it. So
yeah,
you guys definitely nailed that.
Well, honestly, you may not know this, but we actually had contacted John because we wanted him to be a part of the record. And he had planned on coming to Muscle Shoals and engineering and kind of being a co-producer with us on the album. But in the final hour, he had some stuff come up on his end that did not allow him to actually, there was a conflict on our scheduling. And he said, I really think that you guys are in good hands with the musicians that are there. I think you don't need me. And he said, I think you guys are going to be fine. So we actually hope to work with John in the future, because he is just an incredible engineer. And from a sonic perspective, that's a huge part of recording. And when you're in that creative mode, you don't want to be thinking about mic placement. You don't want to be thinking about, is this in phase, or you just want to know that whoever you're working with is capturing that recording in the best way they possibly can.
Right.
And that's the beauty of working with John. And John is also, he has a great ear, and he's gonna give you great ideas. And just working with him on the One Mic series, we knew that. And so I'm sure down the road we probably will work with John at some point. So
yeah, good. Yeah, the interview that I did with him, I think he was so giving of his time. I think we talked for like an hour and a half. He just made so many beautiful points about how to record and the way musicians work together. And the conversation you have between instruments and singers, and it's just incredible. So and so another thing that I wanted to ask you guys about that I think is really interesting is that on top of writing all of the stuff, all your own music, obviously, is that you also own all of your own publishing and put the album out by yourselves. For people who might not know, that does a couple of huge things as far as giving you guys more control of your content. And I would also imagine control on the money that's coming in. And so I just kind of wanted to ask or have you guys talk about what led you to kind of invest in yourselves versus trying to get signed, with like a major label and kind of give all that up, I guess.
Well, it's always been important to us to keep our publishing unless we got just an out of this world incredible offer to consider. Of course, we consider everything that comes across our tables, but so far in our careers, it's been in our best interest to own our publishing. And, for many reasons. And one, like you said, you can be in control and make decisions and not have to be answer to someone else and maybe have to pass on certain opportunities that maybe a major publisher would, not really advise. If something didn't pay huge, they might say, well, let's not do that. But, we like to just consider every opportunity, and some opportunities, they may pay less, but they may be huge for our career. Sometimes they pay more. You just never know. And we like to have the freedom to be able to do what we want with our music. So that's always been really important to us. And I will say that the past year we have sent the record out to different people, different labels, different distributors, and we did get a lot of feedback. But at the end of the day, it seemed like the best route for us for this debut album as the Imaginaries was for us to put it out under our own umbrella and just own it all and be able to make decisions with it as needed and as we want. And we're really excited to partner with 1RPM, who is our distributor for the album. And we're working with their label services team. We also have a great marketing team and a publicist in place. And we're also really excited to do a radio campaign with this as well.
Oh, cool.
But I think that, being an independent artist these days, you basically are your own record label. And if you take the time, which we've had plenty of, and get all your ducks in a row, you can really execute a great release without a label. It is possible. Sure. It is very, very possible. So we're excited.
Yeah, good. That's one thing I'm always a huge proponent of, and that's why I like to, in my podcast, kind of talk to so many different people that are kind of self-published or doing their own stuff, is because, I mean, you've just seen so many stories over the years of these huge bands that get signed, and then 10 years later, they've just got nothing and no control, and their music is places they probably didn't want it to go. So I'm always a huge backer and very interested in how that works, and and if it's better for you guys, then I'm 100% behind it.
Yeah, I mean, there's different scenarios, and what's good for one person may not necessarily always be good for everyone else. But, for us at this time with our current set of circumstances and opportunities, we just felt like this was the way to go. And, we have a lot of friends who do have publishing deals and or record label deals. And, they can be great. They can also be extremely limiting and controlling. So you just have to, look at every opportunity and decide if it's in your best interest at that moment or maybe not.
I mean, my thoughts on that too are, just like the quote from the Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of what we're doing with the Imaginaries. I mean, we're just going the indie route. We're winning over our fans one at a time, and we're making the music that is true to us. Mm-hmm. And maybe later on down the road, once we really establish a name. Maybe there will be the perfect publishing deal that we want to pursue, but right now it just feels like we need to put in the work and build this to a certain point,
Right.
and do it on our own, do it the way we want to do it. So
Yeah, and I don't know how really to ask this, but are you guys able to also get your music out to like music directors and television and film and stuff like that? Because I mean, your songs are obviously, I mean, I think they're amazing and would fit in with a lot of those kind of different avenues very easily.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that is one area that we are really focused on. And we've had a few placements so far with the songs, even though the album isn't out yet. And we definitely expect there to be more in the coming months and year for sure. And, we are actively pitching the music right now to music supervisors, directors, producers, music editors, and everyone working in film and television. There's a lot of content coming out right now, even though the pandemic, slowed production down for a little bit, but there's still a whole lot of content coming out, and every show, every movie needs music. And so we're trying to tap into the ones that would be the perfect fit for us.
Yeah, that's great. On the album, going back to the album real quick, there were, I think, 4 songs that you guys did co-writes on. And so that's kind of always an interesting thing for me too, since you guys write together. What I guess is kind of the decision process when you kind of come up on a song and you say, well, maybe we'll ask this person to come in, or how does that work for you guys?
yeah,
Well,
so most of the, I'm sorry, Maggie, I didn't know you were going to take it.
no, go ahead. You're fine.
Okay, so most of the co-writes that we did on this record were kind of at the phase when actually some of the songs we wrote before we ever went to Muscle Shoals, before we even knew that the band was going to be the Imaginaries. We just knew that we were like harvesting songs for a new project. And sometimes it's cool to just, we write a lot together, but sometimes it's cool to like just get together with another writer that we like and see what happens, And that's what we did. Like the song Blue Sky, we wrote with Shane Alexander, who is an incredible artist and singer-songwriter and just a phenomenal musician and writer. And we knew that like getting with him, we would write something cool. It would have a little different flair than the rest of the songs that we might write on our own, but it might still be something that really fits in our lane. And it did. So we recorded the song Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every song, it comes together in its own way. And it really is a magical thing, because each song, like I said, literally, it's not like we, said, okay, today, it's not like we sat down with these 10 songs and said, let's write this one with this person and this one with this person. We had a bunch of songs before we decided which ones were going to make the album. But I would say, with Revival, we wrote with Stephen Goss and Nathan Angelo in Nashville, and that had to do with the fact that we were there, and Nathan was visiting, and it was just the perfect time, and we happened to have these song ideas that merged into one, and then Nathan and Stephen both just brought their A game, and we wrote Revival, and that was, we did not know that was going to come out of that session. And Trust Falling With You was a completely different process, where Shane, started it on guitar and was playing around with the idea forever, and he played it for me. We worked on it a little bit, and then we worked on it more with our friend Jeff Silbar, who is an amazing songwriter, and then we worked on it a little more with our friend and collaborator Devin Powers. And that one, the 4 of us never sat down and worked on it at the same time. It was kind of done in pieces.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so every song kind of happens differently, just how it's meant to come into the world.
Yeah. I always find that process interesting, when you start collaborating with other people, because they may just add one little thing or one line, and you're like, oh, that's it. That's what it needed.
Yeah, and we love co-writing, and we had a great time doing so for this album. And there were certain songs where we felt like, I don't know, not that we needed someone else to finish it, but we thought that maybe their specialty or skill set, might bring something really interesting to the song idea.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing to consider.
Yeah.
There Will Come a Day is a song that I started, and then Shane and I were in Nashville again and finished it with our dear friend Justin Glasgow. And so that one came to be, and that was probably one of the first songs that was written for the album.
Yeah, definitely was.
Yeah, when every time I talk to somebody about collaborating, I always think of when Greg Allman was writing Midnight Rider, and the roadie Kim Payne had given him that line, "One more silver dollar," and it's just just that little offhanded comment or whatever that just makes the song and just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You never know what can come from someone else's input, and it can really improve your ideas and songs, and it can also make you think of new and better things too. So we love co-writing with people.
Yeah, there's definitely a synergy that happens when you're in a room and you're getting creative with other people. It sort of just starts this whole it just elevates stuff, and it's really cool how it works. It's hard to put into words, really.
Yeah. Thank you again to Maggie and Shane for discussing the album and their careers as singer-songwriters. The way they work together to create music results in some beautiful songs that just stay with you, and I often find myself just humming along with one of their tunes throughout my day. Get over to their website to pick up any of their music or merchandise and follow along with the incredible things that they're doing with their music. Thank you to my sponsor, Black Cat Bone Productions, and feel free to follow along on Instagram, jeremyglazer.com, and definitely subscribe to the Art Inside the Craft on whatever platform you listen. Please stay tuned as I have a number of incredible interviews coming up, and as always, I will catch you all down the road.